Hello and welcome to this webinar delivered by the ISM Trust. I am Maria Visitiu and I'm Member Engagement and Events Officer at the ISM, and today I'm joined by musician and counsellor Rachel Jepson for our Mental Health for Musicians webinar. Before we begin, we have a few points for you. You should be able to see us, but we can't see you. You should also be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. If you experience any technical difficulties, such as sound or quality issues, please let us know in the questions box and we'll make attempts to resolve the issue. If we're experiencing any technical or sound issues, I apologize in advance. Please bear with us because this is live. We're doing our best to resolve the issue as soon as possible. This webinar is also being recorded and will be available to view on the ISM's website at ism.org/webinars. If you think of any questions during this webinar, please let us know in the questions box and we will leave some time at the end to answer as many of them as possible. Now, without further ado, I'll introduce Rachel and I'll hand over to her for a few introduction points. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, thanks Maria. Yes, I'm Rachel Jepson. I'm a counsellor. I'm also a musician. I've been sort of in the industry for over 20 years now, which makes me feel really old. But yeah, I work primarily within the music industry as a counsellor, but with lots of other organisations as well and in private practice. But yeah, I wrote a book, Mental Health in the Music Industry, a guide. All proceeds to that go to mental health charities. I think that came out in November, so it's been almost a year really. And I developed and had accredited the first and only course in mental health awareness in the music industry, which I deliver fairly frequently. Obviously at the moment it's quite difficult, but I've been doing a lot of Zoom days doing that course. And I just also had accredited a 2-hour workshop for music students as well. So those things are really great and people always get a lot out of it. So yeah.
Awesome.
And obviously, so during this time, obviously I've struggled a bit because I've had gigs that have been cancelled and that kind of thing. So it's just been a really difficult time. But yeah, hopefully this will address some of that.
Some of those issues. Well, we've got some questions prepared, some questions that we received in advance from some of the attendees and that we thought would be good to cover. So we're going to have this Q&A with these questions that we have prepared, and then afterwards, if there's any questions from anyone listening, if you just want to add them to the questions box, we'll attempt to get to them at the end. So I suppose one of the first questions would be, what do you feel one of the main issues has been around this pandemic on mental health, specifically within the creative industries?
So I think, the obvious one would be that, everyone's lost work. So financially, it's been really difficult and people have a really uncertain future. Even with things lifting, it's difficult to know what's going to happen. So, I've got clients and friends who have basically lost, their year's worth of work and don't really know whether they're going to get that back in the future. So financially it's been really difficult. And I think either musicians and people in the music industry have had to just completely stop and have no way of knowing where the income's going to come from. Or they've had to do alternative things to make money, which can also be a struggle. If you're suddenly having to do things that you wouldn't normally do, or that you don't particularly enjoy, then that can be really difficult. So there's been a lot of anxiety and depression around that, just that uncertainty. And alongside, you've got all the stuff that affects everybody, like not being able to see loved ones, not being able to have that physical contact with people, just not being able to socialize. It's just been really, really difficult for everybody. So have a look and see. So yeah, I think, that's pretty much it. So yeah, the sort of having things cancelled, not just financially, but people can have a lot kind of tied into that. It's their identity, and they can, thrive off being a musician and being involved in that, and then suddenly it's taken away, and they might not have that creative output anymore. They might not be able to get together as a group and see each other. I think rehearsing on Zoom and things like that has posed challenges for people. So it's all of that, things that we just never would have thought of. It's all kind of coming into play now.
Yeah, of course, and we were never prepared for anything like this. Nothing prepares you for anything similar. Why do you feel this situation has been particularly difficult for mental health?
I think again, like you just said, Maria, like it's a really unprecedented time. Nobody expected it. We don't have a set of rules or anything to live by when this happens. We've had to kind of help cobble it together. So yeah, I think that it's just kind of been forced upon us, and we've had to try and deal with it. There has been a lot of anxiety and depression on my side, just not being able to do the things that you normally do, not being able to even go to work. Some people have really enjoyed that. But some people may really like going into the office or seeing people and going to rehearsals. If you're a professional musician and you really enjoyed that, then you've got that kind of whipped away from you. Then that can cause a lot of, and again, like we were saying before, sort of identity. Who am I in all of this? And what does it mean that I can't do this at the moment? And the fact that we've kind of been forced into this situation where we can't leave the house as well. And if you don't live in an area particularly that's grassy, or you can't kind of walk about as much or kind of get out, then that's really difficult as well. So it's kind of putting in, I guess we'll talk about later, sort of self-care and things like that. But it's been really difficult. It's sort of like we've all stepped out of life for a bit. We can kind of look in on it, which I think in some ways is really positive, and a lot of positive stuff has come from this. But also on the flip side, it could be really damaging to people's mental health. So yeah, there's been a lot of things that we're completely unprepared for.
Of course, yeah, I know. Do you know how has the pandemic affected the already existing issues to do with mental health in the music industry, such as addiction or money and creativity?
Yeah. So again, the fact that we're all sort of stuck at home, and obviously we're coming out of it a little bit at the moment, it's not a good thing for people who struggle with addiction for many reasons. As I talk about in my course and generally talk about in my work, the music industry in itself isn't the best lifestyle for people who are addicts anyway. And obviously with things like tours being cancelled, gigs being cancelled, it takes away some of the temptation to sort of get involved with things. But if you're at home and you're in the music industry or in any industry and you're an addict, you're kind of, bored. You need a distraction from things. You don't, again, what we talked about before, your identity is tied up in music, being creative, whatever's going on in that. You may feel really, really like you're struggling a lot. And people are drinking more. It's been kind of well documented over this time, hasn't it? People are drinking more, they're at home more. It's something to do. And also the temptations there all the time. You're in your house, you've got alcohol in the kitchen, and you just maybe go when the kids are in bed or even in the day, just to sort of, soften things a little bit. And people are really struggling with anxiety, depression, other things. And that's just something else that's there all the time. If you're addicted to drugs, obviously it's been a little bit more difficult to get hold of things because everyone's in lockdown, but you can still get hold of things. It's not stopped. So there's that as well. I just need something to get me through this period. I hear that a lot with clients who are addicts. I need something to get me through this period. It's a really difficult time. So again, those issues with addiction are almost kind of heightened in this. And again, there aren't the support groups that you can actually physically go to and leave the house. As I'll talk about later, there are online support groups and they're really helpful, but perhaps not the same as getting out of your house, going somewhere, seeing people, seeing your sponsor, getting through that time. Other issues as well, like we were just talking about, there's no tour, there's no life on tour. Things are kind of taken away in that way. So already existing things We've kind of had all of that taken away, and then it's that uncertain future. I was meant to go on tour and now I can't, and will that be next year? And how does that affect me releasing the album, or whatever's sort of going on with that, and creativity as well. I think there's been a real sort of interesting dynamic going on with people over this time, where they're kind of taking the opportunity to learn new things and get involved with stuff that maybe they wouldn't have done before, which is really great, learning new skills, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's a lot of pressure on. And I feel that, and I know that clients and friends feel that as well. I should be doing this, I should have written an album by now, I've had 5 months off. All that kind of stuff comes into play. But of course, it's been a really difficult time, and that unnecessary pressure could just be detrimental. It could be really helpful as well to people. They could really want that drive of, I've got loads of time, and I never get to do this. I'm going to take these months and I'm going to write this, I'm going to sit down at the piano, whatever's happening. But yeah, that extra pressure of, we're coming out of this and I should have had this done, or it's kind of made. So yeah, it's kind of watching out for that. I should have done this. I see it a lot, sort of even out of the industry. Take this time to learn a new skill, take this time to cook, take this time to learn an instrument, or do loads of work on your house, or whatever it is. So it's just being really aware of that as well. And creativity is a really big thing. If you force it, you sit down and say, right, I'm going to write my album. Well, that could be really harmful to do. Writer's block may come in, but also that, like, why am I not good enough? Why can't I do this? I should be able to do this. So a lot of already existing issues can sort of come into play with that, really. Yeah.
Sure. And I mean, sometimes you just blame it on the fact that you don't have time to learn a new language, or learn how to, I don't know, knit, or learn a new hobby or something. But now all you've got is time, and you feel like you can't do it.
Nobody has an excuse to not do it. Yeah. And I think the reason to not do it is that we're all going through a really difficult time. And that extra pressure, just could be harmful for some people. I think it's just being mindful of that, really.
Sure, yeah. What new mental health issues do you think musicians have faced due to the pandemic? So, for example, caused by loss of work or redundancy or something similar?
Yeah, so I think, like we were just saying, already existing issues have been exacerbated by this. But yeah, new things have kind of come in as we've been talking about. So that loss of work, uncertain future. I think musicians and people in the industry already have that anyway. It is really uncertain. You don't know where your next job's coming from. But at the same time, to lose everything, for some people anyway, can be really, really difficult. And that has really presented a massive issue that I think we'll be feeling for quite a while. Obviously, like we've been saying, we're kind of coming out of it a little bit. They are reopening things, they are kind of booking in things. I'm getting invites from things for next year, and all that kind of stuff is going on. But that feeling of, oh, what am I going to do now? It's all been taken away from me. Could be kind of feeling the effects of that. It's been really traumatic for people. And I think we can't underestimate that, really. And there may be some post-traumatic stress going on for a bit of time to come. And again, sort of being mindful of that could be really, really important. And just, having that knowledge that actually this has been really, really difficult, and I had no idea this was coming. And I think for people who suffer with anxiety, this has just made that so much worse. Some people really already feel that something's around the corner and they can't sort of settle, and they're always on edge. And I think in some ways that validates that, doesn't it? I was right to feel like that because something was around the corner and I did have everything kind of whipped away from me, and now I'm kind of picking up the pieces of that. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of going on. And I think, like we were just saying as well, if you didn't already have problems with alcohol, this time has been really testing for people. As we were saying before, it has been well documented in the media that people have been drinking more. So that's something to really be aware of, just generally, for everyone, that we're kind of at home more, bored, wanting distraction. So all of that's kind of come in, and that possibly wouldn't have happened before a lockdown. I feel like people can distract themselves, or they can go out and see people, or bury themselves in their work and all that kind of stuff. If that's then not there, then what reason do they have not to drink? They may as well do that. Some people may feel like that anyway. So yeah, there's been things around that may be new for some people. But yeah, definitely the loss of work and the uncertainty is definitely something that a lot of people would never have imagined that they would have to deal with.
Of course, yeah, no, I guess, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, as you said. The uncertainty is the worst. Do you have any recommendation as coping strategies? So what could we do? Well, what could people do who are suffering with mental health issues during this time?
Yeah. So I think, obviously, like we've been saying, just really taking care of yourself in this. Really, like a lot of self-care going on. Obviously, as a therapist, I talk about that a lot with clients. There needs to be self-care coming in. You need to make sure that you're looking after yourself. Definitely exercise. Definitely going out for walks when you can, which can be difficult when the weather is bad. But I think it's just being really aware that getting out of the house can be really, really helpful and beneficial to people's mental health. Even, yeah, like I said, even if the weather's not great, just getting out there, breathing in air, getting out of the house can be really, really good for that. I think, again, sort of not putting too much pressure on yourself to do things. Equally, maybe putting a little bit of pressure on yourself, depending on who you are and how you're feeling, to take up something that you've always wanted to take up, or practice a bit more. I hear it a lot from musicians. I don't have enough time to practice. I wish that I could sit and compose or write, and obviously don't have that time to do that. So all we have is time at the moment. So again, depending on how you're feeling and who you are and what you're doing, both of those things could be really important. I think it's just being aware of what's going on for you and having that awareness that maybe you need to take some time out. Maybe this has been a really good thing for some people. To not have that pressure and really reflect on what it is that we want to do. Yeah, definitely exercising in the house even. Joe Wicks, I've heard it from so many people, and me included in that. It's been an absolute life changer.
Yeah, really, I think he's going to be knighted soon for services during the pandemic for the British public, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah, and so he should be. And I was saying that, it wouldn't surprise me at all that was going to happen. He's helped so many people of all ages. I mean, it was supposed to be for children, wasn't it? But everybody who's been doing that, I think it's just been amazing. But yeah, not only is it giving people a routine, but it's also encouraged people to do physical exercise in their own homes. It's kind of been a real game changer for people who feel that they need to go to the gym or they need to get out. And some people really benefit from that. And I completely respect that. Some people need to get out and go for a run or go to the gym, be around people who are doing the same thing. That's completely understandable as well. But I think just that, being able to do things in your own home, again, we've been forced into this situation. And getting those skills, getting a bit of space doing Joe Wicks, doing some weights, whatever it's been. I think physical exercise is just so important in that. And again, the self-care, just really looking after yourself. It can be really, really difficult, especially when you're not seeing people. You maybe don't need to wash your hair or, have a bath or whatever it is. But I think just keeping that up and respecting yourself and having that, I'm worth doing this for, even if there's not other people around to do it for, can be really, really important. I think if you're struggling, obviously talking to people about that, sharing how you're feeling, I can wager that people in your life feel the same, and sort of having that conversation, I'm finding this really difficult, and that may open up for them to say, yeah, me too, it's been really hard, what can we do, let's do this more. People are having more and more of those conversations, but yeah, definitely that kind of talking if you can. And some people may feel really lonely and like they can't talk, or when they're in a situation where there's difficulties at home, and they're really kind of trapped. And obviously that's been kind of documented in the media as well, that domestic abuse and things like that have been really on the rise, unsurprisingly. I think just sort of knowing what's out there, support-wise, and like I was saying before, there are online alcohol, groups, drug groups. There are all of these things going on, and I think you guys have got a helpline, haven't you? Counselling services. So there's the ISM helpline, counselling services, music support have a lot of online groups as well. So they do a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous type things on their groups, and just sort of contacting people. The helpline, Help Musicians have a helpline as well. All these things are 24 hours. I know music support kind of specialise in addiction as well, so that's definitely something to take into account. But yeah, there are these things out there, and I think people need to be more aware of them. But going onto any of these websites, ISM, music support, Help Musicians, then obviously you've got things like Samaritans and stuff like that. So all of these things, knowing where to go to for support can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, no, we've touched on what was going to be my next question. So where people could go for support, and yes, the ISM does have a free 24/7 counselling helpline, and they also, after an initial assessment, they do continue. We used to do them face to face, but obviously that's not happening at the moment. So if that's the case, it's either telephone or Zoom at the moment. So they've adapted for that situation as well. So if anyone is in need of talking to someone, that's one of the options, and the other ones that you've mentioned. And finally, do you think, or can you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Do you think people's mental health will improve as lockdown restrictions are easing, and now especially with attempting to reopen the venues and attempting to do more and more concerts, open air or drive through, all of that? Do you think there's a chance might get better?
Yeah, I do. I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit already. We're seeing a bit of relief. We're seeing people kind of take a deep breath and think, oh, okay, I can, go and see people now, or I can, even going to the pub can mean a lot to some people. But yeah, I think we're kind of coming out of that. And obviously, like you say, we're seeing that gigs are kind of being booked again for later on in the year. Tours are being rebooked for maybe later in the year or next year. And then obviously sort of certain venues are reopening and all that kind of stuff. So there is a lot going on in that area. And I do think seeing that can make people kind of breathe that sigh of relief and think, right, okay, at least we've got this coming up, or at least we can kind of get back into things soon. Going back to what I said earlier, I do think that we'll be feeling this for quite a while, especially in terms of mental health. And like I was saying earlier, around sort of trauma even. Even if you've not had coronavirus, this time has been really traumatic for lots of different reasons, and some of the ones that we've talked about. I think people may sort of start to notice that actually they did feel anxious throughout this time, if they didn't even notice at the time. and sort of coming out of that. I think even feeling your way around sort of the new normal, what that's going to look like, can bring on a lot of anxiety. I think people are worried about starting things up again. I think it's just being aware of that as well. What's this going to look like? How am I going to fit back into this? Some people might have quite enjoyed being at home. So if you're suddenly having to go out and rehearse again, or think about going on tour, or think about, working in the studio, producing, whatever it is that you do, suddenly, okay, that's all starting up again. What's that going to be like for me? I've actually quite enjoyed this. So there's all of that to sort of consider as well. But yeah, generally, I do think that it could be a positive thing that everything's kind of starting up again. But do you think it kind of comes with its own anxieties around how this is going to be? And that's not just within the music industry, is it? It's the same for everyone. That first time we kind of hug our parents or hug, friends, is going to be really special. But also, I think there will be some anxiety around that for people. So just be, again, I can't say it enough really, but just looking after yourselves and being really aware of what you need, just doing things at your pace could be really, really helpful at this time.
Yeah, sure, true. If there's any questions from anyone listening, please, if you just want to pop them in the questions box, we'll kind of finalize the questions that we had received so far. So any new questions, anything you're curious to ask Rachel, you might need some help on. Let's see. Do you know, we've got a question from someone, do you know what a good way to kind of keep track of your mental health would be, and so that you kind of get a hint on when you should be concerned? What in terms of that? Yep.
Great question. That's a really good question. So I think, obviously you know yourself to an extent, and you may know if you're feeling anxious, down, you kind of see the signs of that usually, again, to an extent. Some people may not be very good at kind of knowing that, and knowing maybe when they need to stop something or start something or explore something with somebody or talk or open up. And a lot of people just kind of get through and just think, it's okay, I'm going to get through this and then I'll be fine. Or when I get through this, I'll book some counselling. Or, some people kind of get through like that. And I think if you're going to keep putting things off and keep doing that, I think that's a really good sign that maybe you need to do things sooner rather than later, in terms of kind of seeing a counsellor or talking to somebody, even talking to a relative and saying, I'm finding this really difficult. I think, again, it's really difficult to say without kind of knowing the person. But if you're, sort of repeatedly, kind of frequently feeling down or just feeling down all the time, obviously sort of quite blatant signs of depression, kind of not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to leave the house, not wanting to see people. Obviously in this situation, that's been quite enabling for people because we haven't been able to do any of those things. So it's been kind of difficult to distinguish, I guess, what is depression and what is having to stay at home. But I think, again, if you know that you don't want to do those things, and maybe you've been feeling down or anxious for a while, and this has kind of heightened everything for you, then again, kind of knowing that and sort of seeing, actually, I've been feeling really down for a while now. I think it's different for everybody. It's difficult to know. But I think, if you're questioning that or sort of wondering about keeping track, maybe that is something to sort of look into a little bit. And obviously there are sort of apps and things, aren't there, like Headspace and things like that, where you can sort of go on. Yes, even doing meditations and things like that. It can be a really good thing. Obviously, going back to the self-care can be a really good thing to do. But you can also, I think, with certain things, I'm not 100% sure with Headspace, but there are certain apps where you can record your mood and things like that, and it will tell you, you know, how you're feeling, or maybe you need to do this, or so. Yeah, I think sort of keeping track. It's a really good question.
Yeah, I think Headspace and Calm, as you said, and I think there's loads of others there that are kind of just to keep a tracker of how you're feeling, and you can just add multiple details. Thank you for that question. That was great.
Yeah, it was good.
So let's see what else we've got. Someone's asking if we kind of touched on feeling pressurized by the environment to do stuff, but what if you're kind of pressured and busy from trying to compensate your income loss by doing something else, like teaching more or something like that, and if you're in need of kind of doing more teaching over Zoom or something, just to compensate the income, as I said, that you lost from performing, how do you find time for yourself in that situation?
That's a really good question. So yeah, that's it, isn't it? People are kind of taking on more work, especially online teaching in the music industry. And I think, yeah, there needs to be, because you're at home and you're not leaving to go anywhere, there needs to be boundaries, like really, really strong boundaries on, right, I'm finished work now, this is my time. I'm not going to feel guilty about sitting down watching Netflix for the evening. I'm not going to feel bad about the fact that I haven't cleaned the house. I've been working really hard and this is my time. I think, you know, sometimes even the drive to work or the bike ride to work or whatever is going on with how you travel can be really, really beneficial, just to kind of leave it and then come home, and then, you know, the boundaries are there. There's nothing kind of blurred in that. People are working from their bedrooms, working from the kitchens. So it's really difficult to kind of look after yourself in that. But again, there needs to be some time. I think obviously you want to take on as much work as you can. And I'm the same. I completely respect that. But is there a possibility that you could maybe leave a little bit of time in your diary and just say, right, this is my time, and I'm not going to book anything here, even a Friday afternoon, evening, it's Friday, I'm not going to do anything this afternoon. There needs to maybe be those spaces where you're really disciplined with yourself. It can be really tempting when someone says, oh, have you got any space free? And you're like, oh, I'll just fit you in here. I completely understand that. But again, I think being really disciplined and strict with that can be really beneficial. We need to do that. We need to have that time where we carve it out for ourselves. We don't do anything else. But I do understand the financial strains are really, really tempting to kind of take on as many people as possible. And it is difficult to get that balance of things. But I think, again, you know, just not pushing yourself too hard to do that, because you will kind of get burnout. You know, you will get that, oh gosh. And we're all kind of getting that, they call it kind of Zoom fatigue, don't they? We're all kind of getting Zoom fatigue. We're all kind of looking at tiny screens and kind of trying to keep track of everybody and all that kind of stuff. So doing that all day, again, that's something that we had no idea would happen. So we need to make allowances for all of this stuff. But yeah, definitely, you know yourself, you know how many clients you can take on, how many students you can take on, but definitely having time in the diary just for you. And of course, obviously, depending on your situation, you may have a partner, you may have children, you know, they may want your time. So it's just juggling all of that. It's so difficult, but having that time for you is just beyond beneficial. Like, you need to have that.
Of course, yeah. Thank you. Another question is, let me just have a look. Sorry, some of them are quite long, so I'm trying to get through them. So clearly, this time has affected all of us and all types of musicians. But one would say that you know, recent graduates or people who are just at the beginning of their career, who they might have felt like they're getting a breakthrough and they're making, you know, they're getting to know the right people. Now they might feel like they're back to square one again, because there's nothing out there. And even when things go back to normal, they might not necessarily be at the top of the list that they thought they might be getting before before lockdown. Do you have any suggestions on how they might, deal with this?
Excellent. What a brilliant, question, and also a situation that we haven't really talked about. So I think that's great. Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that, and it feels kind of heartbreaking actually when you talk about it. So you're at the start of things, you feel like you're kind of making some headway, and then everything stops, and you feel like you're kind of going back to the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, so much in this industry is kind of who you know and you and so on. And when things are kind of going, there might be a chance. But also now that nothing's happening, when things will go back to normal, everyone will be free. So it's not going to be a case of, all of these people that are on your list are booked, and then you get to the newest people that have been added to the list. You're going to start at the top of the list again with the people that you worked for ages, and then again the people who are just starting have a lot of time on their hands to wait until everyone else gets busy, so that it gets to your chance.
Yeah, so I think again it's kind of really difficult to sort of say without kind of knowing the exact situation or what this person does. But I guess generally, if you're obviously feeling like that, so sort of from a mental health perspective, again, I can feel that. It kind of gets me. I'm like, oh, that's awful. So yeah, like we were saying, just really taking care of yourself in that. Obviously, this is completely beyond your control. You have had no part in this whatsoever. We've had no control over how this has affected us, other than really acknowledging how this has affected you and really kind of sitting with that. If I was your therapist, this is what we would sort of say. Don't kind of dismiss it, push it away. Sit with it. It's happened. You've got every right to feel upset with this and like you've kind of lost time, but you're making progress with things. You kind of had some opportunities, and it's all kind of stopped. So yeah, that is awful, and I feel that. I guess in a practical way, there is always the option of trying to keep up with things as much as you can. So being proactive with that, if you feel, that that's something that you can do. So I guess in terms of contacts, I would imagine that these contacts are still around, even if it's on email or on Twitter or whatever's going on. Obviously not being too pushy with things, because obviously they may be getting a lot of people kind of contact them over this time. But yeah, just sort of reminding them of who you are, what you've got to offer. Obviously, if it's it's really hard to gauge without kind of knowing what you're doing. But yeah, if it's in terms of music and you feel like kind of getting an opportunity with your music, yeah, just kind of reminding people of that, trying to kind of put it out there as much as possible, which I'm sure you've been doing on social media and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a really, really tricky one. And yeah, it's really difficult to not feel like you're kind of taking 20 steps back when you've just got to. And also, like you were saying about kind of being a music student and kind of just sort of starting with this and then kind of getting put to the bottom of the pile again. There's no kind of easy way to sort of get back to the pile again, other than keeping yourselves in people's consciousness, and making sure they're kind of reminded of you without being too pestery. But again, that's really, really difficult. And again, mental health wise, just being really conscious that that's happening, and you may take some comfort in the fact that everyone's kind of in the same boat in some ways. And maybe even talking to other people about that, other people in your position about that. I've found this. Has anyone else kind of felt this? Maybe there's something that can be done as a group. I don't know. It's really difficult to say. But I want to kind of talk to this person so I know what exactly has been going on. But I think definitely mental health wise, it's happened. We all kind of need to sit with that and process that, give ourselves time, be really kind to ourselves. And you will get that again. it will happen again. If you're kind of at that position where you're starting out, you've been getting contacts, people are interested in what you're doing. It's really difficult to feel like it's not going to happen again, but it will happen again. It just may take some time to kind of rebuild that, and I think there's no sort of way around that, really. Yeah.
Sure. No, thank you. Someone else is asking for a good strategy about kind of compartmentalizing your private life and your work life, so not that difficult thing of trying to, I don't know, watch a film or do a bit of meditation or something, and then suddenly all of these thoughts about what you haven't done or the emails you haven't sent or the practice that you haven't done are coming into your mind.
Yeah. I mean, that again, we're all kind of guilty of doing that, and it's completely natural that we would do that. You can't kind of turn off completely from things, even if you're watching a really great film. Things will pop in. It's just how it is. I think it's kind of almost establishing what's going on with that, because I think there's a difference between kind of getting that natural, oh, I need to do the washing up, or that needs to be done, and then like sort of being really hard on yourself and being like, oh, but I really need to do that thing for work, and if I don't do that thing for work, then I'll miss out on this, or that person, won't get this on time, or there's different levels of it, I think. And again, like I was saying with the other person who asked the great question about kind of, the kind of working at home and things like that, and taking on students and things, that there maybe just needs to be, this is my time, whatever kind of comes in my head, that's fine. I can kind of go back to that another time. I'm not going to completely dismiss everything. I'm aware that there are things that I need to do or I want to do, but this is my time now, and I will get to that stuff, but I'm going to watch Netflix, or I'm going to do some meditation, or I'm going to, do whatever needs to be done now, because this is for me. And I think at the moment, especially, we've kind of forgotten that, and we've kind of lost that a little bit, because we're not leaving our houses to go and do it. We're not leaving to go to yoga or Pilates or meditation group or whatever it is that we do, even on a bike ride, that kind of thing. Obviously we can do that, but when it comes to sort of having those times of, I'm going to go to this class, I'm going to go out to this bar and see my friends, we're kind of not doing that. And I think because we're not doing that, we've sort of forgotten that there needs to be a very clear, I'm leaving to do this, and this is my time now. You can't really do a lot about your thoughts coming into your head. Things like meditation can be really helpful with that. Sort of clearing the head of the apps that we talk about, Headspace, Insight Timer is a great app for meditations. You can do 5-minute ones, you can do hour-long ones. They're really, really good for that. But you can stick on a 5-minute meditation. You're kind of centering yourself, this is my time, I'm putting this 5 minutes aside for me. Whatever comes in my head, that's fine, I'll deal with that later, but this is my time. But again, we're sort of back to talking about boundaries. We're in our houses for the most part, so there will be that, right, gosh, the washing up's in there. If we went out to the office, we wouldn't be thinking about the washing up. That kind of thing is going on more and more, because we're not kind of leaving to do things. But yeah, the things popping into your head, it happens. It's natural, it would happen. But there needs to be that, this is me, and this is what I'm doing right now, and I will get to that stuff. Almost repeating it as a mantra, almost. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. We've got it might be a bit of a difficult question, but someone's asking of a way or an idea about how to reduce the stigma in the creative industries and the music industries when seeking help when dealing with mental health problems.
Wow, that's a good one. I talk about that a lot on my course that I do. We have a lot of debates about things like that, because there is stigma. There is stigma about it, and a lot of people in the music industry are worried about admitting that they may be struggling. It goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago with that great question about opportunities and sort of getting to the top of the pile and things like that. It also goes hand in hand in that. And I know people, I've experienced clients and friends who maybe have admitted something, and they may have lost out on an opportunity from it. The best way to kind of deal with that stigma is to carry on talking about it, which can be really uncomfortable. There is an element of sort of almost being a whistleblower. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to carry on talking about this. This is important. Sure. But within that, there's a bit of fear around losing out on things. There's definitely fear around, if I'm down or depressed or anxious, am I going to get chosen to go on this tour? Or am I going to get chosen to work with this person? Or, there's a lot that kind of going on around that. And obviously being a therapist, I'd like to think that people are getting a lot more open around things like that and a lot more accepting. I definitely feel like I try and surround myself with people in the music industry who are accepting of things and who understand and have experienced things themselves. But unfortunately, there is a small amount of people who don't really accept that people are struggling and that maybe they need to just get on with it. And, it's part of the industry. And if you're not going to do it, then someone else will be happy to, because you're really lucky to be here. There's so much stuff. I could talk about this for hours. But yeah, there is a stigma. There is a stigma around it. But like we were saying, there are a lot of organisations like yourselves who have support groups, helplines, a lot of people who have experienced the same things, kind of all getting together, talking about it. Like I said, I've got my book that I've written. There are other people who have written books about this. Obviously the course that I do, but just, kind of keeping on raising awareness, keeping on talking about it can be really, really beneficial. And I think even stepping out of the music industry, there is a stigma, especially within with men, around talking about things, around admitting that there is an issue, that men should be strong, and that admitting any kind of mental health problem is a weakness of some kind. Of course, that is absolute rubbish, but it's perpetuated sometimes with certain ways of thinking, certain people saying things. So unfortunately, this does happen, and there is a stigma. And I think, again, raising awareness, talking about it. If you as an individual, obviously we haven't kind of talked about you, but if you're feeling like there is stigma and that you want to talk to somebody about things and you're finding it really difficult at the moment, which, I'm sure is perfectly reasonable with everything that's going on, then again, there are people that you can talk to. There are organisations you can talk to about that. And sort of maybe opening up to friends, family. If the friends and the family are the ones that are giving you stigma, then that can be really, really difficult. I think just, again, kind of seeking out the help as you have done by asking this question could be really, really beneficial. We've got there's so much within this topic around stigma, within just mental health generally, but then almost an extra kind of level to it within this industry, where, if you do admit anything, it can be detrimental to your career. So there is a lot in that, and I kind of want to keep going talking about it. Yeah, interesting.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, I hope that's answered your question even just a little bit. But if you can, I guess if you're kind of interested in stigma, I guess from a sort of mental health view, then there's a lot that you can kind of read up on around that. But I kind of want to know if it's you that's feeling like that, or whether you're kind of asking the question generally. But just talking about it, raising awareness, sort of being a whistleblower, saying I'm not going to accept this. People struggle, and that's okay. And of course, just going on talk about this a little bit more. A lot of high-profile musicians talk about their mental health and have possibly done quite a lot of positive stuff in that respect by not sort of accepting things. For example, someone like Lady Gaga, she does a lot kind of talk about mental health. She talks a lot about her experiences, things that she's been through, trauma, the stigma that she's experienced, about admitting it. Robbie Williams, he talks a lot about his struggles with addiction, bipolar, that kind of stuff. There's a lot kind of going on with that. So it is being talked about more and more and more. I think things like this are great. there are talks, ISM, you do, some lovely talks about things like this, getting people together, really just raising awareness. So yeah, it's an really important topic.
Thank you. That's great. Great answer. Great help. Thank you very much. We seem to not have any more questions. So if there's anything else that you can think of after the webinar, please, you can send us the messages either at the membership at ISM email address, or just go on our website, and they will be sent to us, and then we can forward them to Rachel or attempt to help you as best we can. So just thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much to all of you for attending. We hope to see you at another webinar soon, and we hope you have a nice day.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I've found this an absolute pleasure to do, and I hope it's been helpful. And yeah, everybody take care. Look after yourselves.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.